Hi, my name is Ari, and I've been learning Russian for the last 5 years. Привет, меня зовут Ari. The rest of the video will be mainly in English because that's just easier if you're learning Russian and you likely don't speak Russian that well yet. There are plenty of things to practice your Russian online. In this video, I just wanted to talk about a couple of things that I noticed that as a foreigner that were quite impressive, or just things that I noticed while I was in Russia. I'm from Holland, by the way, so you can kind of see like the perspective of things that are quite normal or relatively, or just things that surprise me as a foreigner in Russia. And if you have traveled to Russia, it might be interesting to you just to see, if you have been to Russia, you think, I also noticed that, or hey, I didn't notice that. If you've never been to Russia, then it can also be interesting just to see how different it is. Let's get started. The first thing that I really notice in Russia is that there's a real big difference between the seasons. And what I mean by that is that in winter, it's really cold, and in summer it's very warm in most places of Russia. Of course, I'm not talking about like the south where this is a little bit less, but I'm talking about main Russia, like Moscow, St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is a little less warm in summer, but still. But also about Siberia. Many people think that Siberia is very it's always cold. That's completely not the case. I was there in 2019 in summer, in the end of July, beginning of August, and it was completely fine. We swam in Lake Baikal. It was very nice. It was warm. The degrees were probably 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, so it was very fine. You could just walk around, like you would walk around in t-shirt, and it would be hot. Like it would be sweating. So it's quite funny if people ask me about Siberia or Russia and they say, "Oh, it's always cold there." No, it's not. In winter it's cold, yeah. Winter is very cold, and in summer it's not. So there are real seasons, and I find that quite interesting because here in Holland, I don't want to talk too long about Holland, but in Holland it's like, summer is good, but summer tend to be quite mild because we have the Gulf Stream, and in winter it can also be quite mild. Like sometimes we don't even have snow. And in Russia, most places, they really experience like winter is winter, summer is summer. Spring tends to be quite not as long as in other places, just like autumn, but still, they're real seasons. Second thing that surprises me, I kind of knew this, but it was interesting to see this being see this being real, is that people don't smile that much on the street. Like, unless they know you, then they smile. But if you're just walking around the street and you don't expect this, then you kind of think, yeah, those are all very serious people. Or maybe they're a little bit unhappy with something. Well, granted, if I would have a winter of 6-7 months, I would also probably not have that much, not be too happy. But still, that people don't smile too often. And this is not like some like compared to Europe, we also don't smile as much as Americans, I suppose, but still in Russia it's a little bit more serious. But this also brings me to the third point, is that even though people might seem like on the street that they're not as friendly, once they get to know you, they're very friendly. And this is especially something that many Russian people don't know too many foreigners. So if you as a foreigner, you kind of already have a little bit of an advantage basically, which is quite interesting. So once people get to know you, then they really try to show you how friendly they are. It's just a very thing in the culture, I suppose. I remember the first time I came to Russia, that when I went to to see the parents of my girlfriend, and every time after, and in many other places where I've been, like every time you come there and there's some sort of they have this huge table with all sorts of tasty food and tasty drinks, and they really want to make sure that you feel comfortable, and I find that very cool. Like here in Holland, if you come at a birthday somewhere, it will be a little bit of cake and some toast and a cup of coffee and maybe a beer, but that's it. I find it in Russia very cool that they tend to take much care of guests and friends more than here or in Western, or at least in Holland. The fourth thing that I found was that it's obvious as well, but that Russia is very big, and that everything in Russia is very big. This might not be as surprising if you come from an American background, but Moscow, for example, take Moscow. Every time I come, Moscow has around 16 million, or officially like, I don't know, 13, 14 million people living there, and unofficially probably a couple million more, maybe not a couple million, but at least it's approximately just as big as Holland, which is super weird. Holland is also not quite, and here in Holland everything is small, but in Russia everything is super big, especially in Moscow. Like you just you arrive to the airport, to Sheremetyevo, and then you go drive on MKAD, and then you just see flats, like living buildings for people, and it's not a surprise if you like count, like, all right, it's 15 houses high, and then it's like 10, like 40 long. So that's 40 multiplied by 15, that's 600. Put like 2 or 3 people on average in one flat. That makes over 1,000 people living in one building. And for me, that's just weird. Sometimes like it's on both sides. So more than 2,000 people living in one building, and no, it just doesn't happen here. It really surprised me every single time I see that. Another thing is we traveled from Moscow to on the Golden Ring. We traveled to Vladimir, and we just drove for 4 hours. We just saw a forest, and I checked on Google Maps how far we just left from Moscow. It was like this super little part. I was like, wow, this country is huge. Holland, you can drive around in a couple of hours. All right, so the fifth thing that surprised me a lot is, especially if you get a little bit outside of the city where people build their own houses, is that the fences are just huge and very high. Sometimes it's not like Rublovka. You can see fences of 5 meters high, and it's just, of course, this is an exception. But even if you're in the little villages outside of Moscow or somewhere far away, then the fences are just very high, just to keep people outside. And I found that interesting, just to kind of show that people are very people care about their privacy a lot, and that also I've also heard of people living in those gated communities where you just got security guards to make sure that no one enters and no one breaks in, and that was very impressive for me. Sixth thing that I also noticed is that if you walk around on the street, the girls tend to take care a lot more of themselves than in European countries or in America. And I don't mean by that you got the stereotype that Russian girls walk around on these high heels and completely, all blonde hair, blue eyes, and with, a lot of makeup. And I think that's going away a little bit. But what I do know is that just on average, they just tend to make sure that they look better. Like they take the genetics that God gave them, and they do the best what they can. And in Western countries, I see more girls just going for the casual look, not caring too much about cosmetics, or not caring about what they're wearing. Like here in Holland now, the baggy clothing is in trend. So you see a lot of girls walking around wearing stuff that looks like it's from their older brother, and it's not too super attractive, to put it. In Russia, this is not happening. Right, so the seventh thing that I noticed and really surprised me is the variety of tasty food available in Russia. What I mean by that is that there's just so many countries that were part of the previous USSR, and a lot of them, they just ended up in Moscow. So a lot of people from Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, the Caucasus, like Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, but also from Ukraine, Belarus, they all ended up, it was basically one big country, so people moved between a lot more. So you have so many different types of food, and especially the food from the Caucasus is a very rich addition to the Russian cuisine in general. Plus you got all the because you got all this stuff with the dumplings, like the vareniki, the pelmeni, I'm not sure if those are exactly from the Caucasus, but especially the khinkali, they're very tasty. But then you also got the plov from Uzbekistan, I think. So there's just so many, and the borscht, of course, from Ukraine. In Russia it's called shi, I think, with the vegetables. There's just so many different things, and here in Holland we really don't have much different types of food. So that's very cool, and so many different things that you don't really find in Western cultures. The eighth thing that surprised me, it just surprised me, is that there were no dark skin colored people. I don't know what I should say to make this sound politically correct. This is an observation that I made. Here in Holland, we have a lot of people, like we have that immigrated from our Caribbean islands. So there are a lot of people with dark colored skin. In Russia, you almost don't see them. That's because, I don't know, Russia did not have colonies, I suppose. Plus, it's also, in general, colder there. So I think a lot of people from the African countries prefer to move to places that have a milder climate instead of the cold climate in Russia. So with the vitamin D in the skin and stuff. The ninth thing that I know is, and I found very funny, is that people, like here in Holland, so just first in Russia, if people show if they're unhappy with their job. Like you see people in like if you go to your shopping mall and you see like a girl sitting behind this little lavka, this little thing, trying to sell some stuff or just doing something, and she's not liking her job. She's just sitting, we're waiting for customers to come in. She's just sitting on her phone, looking angrily, and just showing that she does not enjoying that she's sitting there. And in Western countries, people tend to, you got this thing, like you got to, at least when a client comes in, you need to smile and show that you're happy to see them. Russia, not always the case. And I've I don't know, I just find it interesting. It surprised me a lot. The 10th thing that surprised me was that in Russia I saw a priest driving a Range Rover, quite expensive car. So we traveled to Vladimir on the Golden Ring, Zolotom Koltse, and I always find it interesting to look at I'm not a huge car fan, but I do find it interesting to kind of see which cars are driving around, if they're all expensive or not. You kind of see what people care about. In Moscow, you see a lot of expensive cars, but in Vladimir, a city of maybe 500,000 people, there are not a lot of expensive cars. So quite some old cars and small cars and everything. But at a certain point, we were sitting drinking a coffee for breakfast at a terrace, like it was summer outside, and I see, a lot of small cars, just looking at them, and suddenly this huge Range Rover comes driving past. And okay, cool. It would be cool to know who's in there, because it may be a cool businessman, or someone who's doing something in politics, or I don't know, just interesting to see. And then, this car keeps driving past, and I see that, oh look, it's stopping at the parking next to the place where we were drinking coffee. And so I think, cool, let's see who gets out, so we know who that is. And it stops, and there was a church close by, so this door opens, and then a priest comes out, completely with the Russian beard and with the black clothes. So I found that very interesting to see. Like in Holland, or I think in most Western countries, priests do not drive cool cars. Right. And the 11th thing, just a quick thing, is that in Russia, cats are a lot more suspicious than here in Holland. Like in Holland, it's very common, like you're walking on the street and you see a cat, and it comes up to you and you can pet it. It might even, go lie on his back and show his belly so you can touch his belly. In Russia, cats are very suspicious of people that they don't know, and they're likely not gonna come up to you. Maybe this was a big city thing. I just find it funny. Okay, that was it. I hope you enjoyed the video, because there was a lot of things, like if you're learning Russian, then you likely also are interested in traveling to Russia, and those are some interesting things to know. Also, I got a course where I teach you how to speak real good Russian in half a year. You can find the link in the description. So sign up for that. И ты тоже можешь хорошо говорить по-русски. Alright, спасибо за просмотр и желаю вам очень хорошего дня. Пока.